What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Brutal Planet Comics. I'm your host, Trey the Brute Daniels, and welcome to another episode of the Indie Corner, where I sit down with everybody from the independence community, writers, artists, directors, producers. Doesn't matter if you're in the game, I want to talk to you. So we got ourselves a very special guest. He is the writer of Babes, Gore, and Dinosaurs. Heck of a title. Can't wait to jump into it. Give it everybody for Dustin Brunell. What is going on, my friend? How are you?
How's it going, man? Oh, man. Bless, thank you. Super excited to be on the show, man.
Oh my God, I'm happy to have you. I'm really happy to have you. So first of all, thank you for making the time to come on the show. I see all your long boxes back there, so I know you're a very busy man, doing all the fulfillments and shipments as we all burn through. But it's so good to see you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely. I'm excited.
Good. So let's just get things started off before we jump into all your great work. Let's talk a little bit about you, like who you are, where you come from, and how did we get here?
Right on. So I owned a comic shop in Jacksonville, Florida, for a few years. And when we moved to Tennessee, I don't know, 2019-ish, we closed that, moved up here. It's been a really cool experience, moving up here and stuff. The weather's different and all that. I'm used to being near the water, but whatever. A lot of music here, which is super cool. But when I got here, my uncle passed.
Oh man.
And he was a good dude. He'd been around a long time. But when he passed, I wrote a eulogy and I put it in on Facebook to get it out in the ether, right? So having owned a shop, I knew a lot of comic creators and a lot of people in the industry and stuff. And I'll never forget, I had Bud Root reach out to me and he was like, man, you need to write something. He was like, don't let that, you've got it, write something. And I was like, I don't know about any of that, but okay, so, and all of a sudden though, people started coming out of the woodwork and they were like, hey, put something together, sew something up, and I was like, okay. So my Uncle Les was one of the first Native American Green Berets. And when he passed, he told us all these stories and stuff and through his life and things that he dealt with, PTSD, alcoholism, lots of stuff. So I was like, man, if it all started there, I'm going to write a book about this man and his life and what he was dealing with, what it was like to be a soldier of color and what he dealt with and shit. And so man, it was tough. But I wanted people to be able to vibe with it as well. So we like newer generations and stuff, not just people our age and older, So I added gods, demons, monsters, and what have you to the stories. But all the scariest stuff about the listener was the real stuff. You know what I mean? That was what kept it so true to what it is. Actually, issue 4 comes out in March this month, coming up. But so it's about a Native American soldier that inherits the ability to see and interact with the dead.
Okay. Yeah. So that was like the first one you ever published.
Yep. That was the first book I ever put out.
And what year did that go get published?
2019.
Okay.
That's when that book came out.
Okay. So how long did you own the comic shop before you
About 2 years.
Okay.
It was about 2 years, yeah. It was the most exhilarating thing I've ever done, as well as the most stressful thing I've ever done.
So I've heard.
It was not. I think people go into it with these bright, shining aspirations, and it's a lot harder than. I mean, even at $100,000 our first year intake, it was still smashing me. You know what I mean? 60 hours, 70 hours a week in there. And it was like. I had a job like that before, right? I was already doing a job where I was not home but a couple hours a night, and I didn't want that anymore. So it was a rude awakening to me that things that I thought were the case were not. I was like, man, I love this industry, I'm gonna do this. And it was like, man, we're smashing these numbers, we're doing great, but it's still so stressful. When books aren't showing up when they're supposed to show up, and books are coming in damaged and all kinds of other nonsense. It was just like, I don't know. It wasn't for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just wasn't for me or my family. You know, it was like I had a daughter that my daughter at the time, oh my gosh, was like 3.
Oh wow. Ooh,
Yeah.
young.
Yeah, didn't get to see her at all. Like, because I mean, my wife and I worked full-time jobs, like real full-time jobs, and it was like we didn't get to see her anyway. She was with her grandparents all the time, so we thought that doing this would be a way to alleviate some of that time, and it didn't alleviate any of that time. It took just as much, if not more. And so when we moved, we were like, well, we're not going to do that nonsense again, you know. And we started doing this. It was like, man, at least I'm at home. You know what I mean? I'm around my family. Now I have a son too, so it's nice to be around him.
That's good.
You know. But yeah, that's how it all started, man. It went from one book, the book popped off, went to 2 books, second book did well. Then we went into Greed. And Greed was something that was just like that literal let your hair down book.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you could pick it up and enjoy it and put it back down. Whereas like we were used to writing The Listener, which was literally picked up like as soon as one issue ends, we pick up writing in the next issue. The next page is the next book.
Episodical.
You know? Right.
Yeah.
So with Greed, it was like, all right, well, we do these stories that are large, but they end at the end of the book.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? So it was like, man, now we're writing about a kid and his monster under the bed, and this monster under the bed's kind of a dick. So we're having a lot of fun with that, and that's also tied into the world of The Listener. So you guys will see characters from The Listener in that, and like Lilith's huge. We'll see her a lot in the coming issues, and then after that did well, we were like, man, here we are. We're starting to put out more than one book, and a lot of people only put out one book, you know, and it was like. In a year, we put out 9 issues.
Wow.
You know.
Wow.
And
was that bi-quarterly?
Yeah, they're all bi-quarterly.
Bi-quarterly?
Sorry, they're bi-monthly. Might be. Yeah,
Jeez.
So they're bi-monthly. But then it was like they're all industry standard at a minimum. You know, all our artists work for Marvel, DC, Zenescope, Image. You know, with the exception of 1 or 2 folks that are just getting into the field. But it's like it popped off, and I was like, man, look, we're becoming a publishing company and not just putting out a book or 2 on our own, you know. And then BGD came out, issue 1, we put it out through Totally Rad. Jim helped me put it out through Totally Rad, and I doubled my sales on all my other projects on that book. And then it was like, man, we've got something, you know. And then the next issue of Greed came out and went up like 60% in sales. And we started going, okay, well, then we had stores reaching out to us that wanted exclusives. And we were like, okay, cool. You know, that's wild. Let's do that. And we'll, you know, whatever. And then with this campaign, we did at least, so we're at almost 10,000 now on this campaign. And what's cool about it is people have just got the other issues a month and a half ago.
Gotcha.
Like my books, we get them out, they're done before they go to Kickstarter. And I think that's very important.
As they should.
You know, they're all complete before they go to Kickstarter. With the exception of this issue of BGD, which we did something different. When we hit $8,000, we decided to add 6 more full color pages to the book. So instead of being 24, it's 30 pages.
Okay. Well, that's cool. Yeah. And in regards to that, Dustin, like what you mentioned earlier about making sure that your books are done for Kickstarter, I think that's so important for Kickstarter, Indiegogo. It doesn't matter whichever crowdfunding one people are using these days, because too often than not, it's been like, hey, we're gonna fund the book, and now we're gonna make it after we've reached the funding. I'm like, bruh. Now you gotta
wait like 6 months to get your book.
Easy, right, 6 months before.
We did our last campaign. We literally, so it takes 2 weeks roundabout, give or take, for the money to come in, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we do is we start our printing process a couple days after campaign ends, literally before the money comes in or anything. Because the cool thing about our printers is we'll get our invoice roundabout the time the money comes in. So we've already paid them. The books are already en route to our house, you know. So as soon as it gets to us, I think our turnaround has been like 6 weeks so far.
That's
It's
not
our,
terrible.
our longest turnaround.
That's not too bad.
And that's including the 2 weeks that it takes for them to send us cash and stuff from the. So yeah, it's not bad. It's almost what I tell people is, as long as I can keep up with what Diamond does, I'm okay with it. You know what I mean? Because you're ordering, if you go to your previews, which will be in previews soon, we hope. So when you look at previews, you're ordering 2 months out. You know what I mean? So as long as I can keep up with that kind of pre-order and the understanding that it's a pre-order, I'm gravy, man.
I hear that.
I'm about it.
Excellent.
So
that's good.
Yeah.
That's very good. Very good. So thank you for sharing that awesome origin story with us, Dustin. That joint is tremendous.
Yeah,
so let me jump. Maybe it might be forward or might be backwards. However it goes on the timeline. What made you want to get into the comic industry to begin with? Whether it be the comic shop, like did you start off as a fan, or like were you exposed somewhere else? How did we get to this point that we wanted to be in the industry?
As tends to be for most folks in our age range, we were broke as kids.
Yeah,
we were broke, and we lived in a trailer on property that my grandfather used to rent to farmers.
Oh, wow.
We had like 100 acres that he rented to farmers, but we had to take care of the property. We had to manage the property. So as a kid, I would work the yard and stuff, and I'd get like $1.50, $2 a week. And at the end of the week, my grandfather would take me to get me like a slushie at 7-Eleven.
Nice.
And there'd be like a spinning rack at 7-Eleven, and I could get a book off the rack.
Yep. I remember.
Yeah, that was life, right? So
Yeah.
you'd be waiting for that weekend, because I didn't have no friends or nothing, because I lived out in the middle of nowhere, So you play with the dog, and you play with your action figures that you got from the yard sale down the street.
That is correct.
You know what I mean?
That is correct.
And, and it was He-Man and stuff like that. And, you'd be super grateful if there was like a Game Pro that you could pick up that had some posters in it. You know what I mean? Or whatever.
I used to tear those out.
Right. Yeah, dude. You put it in, like, see, my room was in the attic next to the, because we had the trailer, and then we had like an old, like, barn shed type of thing.
Gotcha.
All of us lived there. You know what I mean? My grandfather, my grandmother, my mom, my dad, all of us lived in this like communal place. And it sounds so backwoods when you think about it, but it was like, I didn't look at it like that. I was super grateful that my family was around and stuff. But so I'd be getting, one book a month or a couple weeks, and it'd be like, you would never get the same book, right? Because they'd never have that on the rack. You'd go in there and you'd get whatever. You never gotten in like continuity, you know what I mean? You'd never get like Spider-Man 80 and then get 81. You'd get like 80 and then 115 down the way, because that's how the 7-Eleven ordered their books, you know what I mean? So it was cool. And when I started getting into that, it was around that time period that they started putting out the Fox Saturday morning cartoons, and you were getting your X-Men, your Spider-Man and stuff. And not only that, though, a couple big ones that stuck out for me were like Ninja Turtles and Street Sharks and Transformers.
Wow, Street Sharks. Wow.
Right?
Okay.
Right?
Haven't heard that in 20 years.
Right.
Wow.
So, heavily influenced things I do today, that particular series. But it was like, when we were very Catholic household, and so when my mom and dad found out Ninja Turtles and Transformers had language in it, I wasn't allowed to have it anymore. And for those that are newer to the Ninja Turtle franchise, when it was black and white, it was pretty tough.
It was.
It was pretty tough.
Yeah.
So
that junk was not for the faint of heart.
Right. So we were, all my books got tossed.
Oh no.
All of them in the garbage. And then, oh man. And then when I got older, I don't know, I was in college at 17, so I started hunting old books, like books that I had collected as a kid, and it just would be like that. I had a part-time job, I was going to school, I'd just be going to these little comic shops in Orlando and stuff, trying to find, different books that I was missing. And then it went like that till I was, oh my gosh, I was still doing that at 29 years old, chasing books like that. And I I got a job in my early 20s doing security programs, like writing security programs.
Oh, cool.
And that turned into a much larger job, and with like 150 employees, and it was nuts.
Wow.
I worked for the city for years and years doing that, and I had an incident with an individual, and my wife made me quit.
I understand.
And I mean, it was my business. Well, my employers were great. Like I said, I worked for the city, so they were really, really good to me. I had to do like 6 months of therapy, and yeah, it was a real tough situation.
Yeah, sounds it.
Well, in the state of Florida, it's 10/20 life when you pull on officials. You know what I mean? So it was a tough situation. I felt bad for the dude. If it had been just me and him, we'd have had a conversation, but it wasn't. So, and then when they made me go to therapy, I was like, okay. And my wife was like, cool, we just had our daughter. She'd just been born.
Oh, wow.
And she was like, no, we're not doing this anymore. She was like, you know what? You're young enough to do something else. So we took our savings and we opened a shop.
Nice.
Because we thought that would be a safe space, and we made it a safe space, for agoraphobics, a literal safe space.
Oh.
So, there were people who could come to the shop if they felt, insecure, or if anything was happening in their lives, all kinds of fun stuff. And yeah, that's how I got into it, man.
Wow.
I was a big fan. I mean, I'm covered in comic book tattoos. When we opened the shop, it was like, I got into indies real heavily, like real heavily. And, I would push indies over anything else. And it just got to the point where we got to know people in that fashion, and doing shows and living in Florida. We were always at MegaCon and, doing all kinds of stuff, Dragon Con and whatever else. But it was like, look, we can, do this, and it can be a thing, and yeah, here we are today, and it's definitely a thing.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Yeah, if that answers, man.
That absolutely answers my question.
Yeah,
that's a heck of an origin.
Man.
That's a heck of an origin.
Where it started, sitting in a dank attic, looking at old musty books and whatnot. Yeah,
and I'm with you, Dustin. I'm a city boy.
Right on.
So, but it was odd how well, even though you're on the countryside, how well your story kind of paralleled my own.
Right.
It was, because I was listening, I said, that sounds like me, but that's not the same. Because I grew up in Washington, D.C.
Oh, right on.
And I lived in a house. Well, it was an apartment. It was a house that was turned into apartments.
There you go.
And it was, I grew up in a house of 6 people, 1 bedroom.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Then we made another bedroom kind of in there. So, me and my cousin, we lived in the back part of the room, which, as you say, dank.
Yeah.
The airflow ain't that great.
Yeah.
And
people don't understand until they've lived like that, man.
Yeah, and like you said, like we were not rich people under any circumstances. Some would say even dancing on the poverty line. But we found joy in, there was our local comic shop that was down the street from our home. So every Friday, we would use our newspaper money to go down there and just get all the ones we can, especially on Fridays. And that time, well, this was decades ago, but at that time, there used to be sales for long boxes on on this shop was Fridays or whatever the case may be, and we'll buy as many as we can. They were like 35 cents, just get a whole. And then we had so like our dresser was like on the wall, so we had like some clothes, but then the last 2 bottom dressers were full.
I love it.
Which is full of comic books, and we separated them DC and Marvel.
Right.
So I'm with you, and that's where we got our inspiration from. That's where I got my inspiration from reading those comics, and of course watching the cartoons when they came out, X-Men, Batman the animated series, so on and so forth. Hulk, I like Incredible Hulk.
Man,
that show.
How many times did you go through that same issue though? You read that same issue. Oh
my God!
Till the cover fell off.
Like the back of my hand. I didn't even have to look at the pictures anymore. It was like I know what that is I know what that is. I know what that is. It was like
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
that's
exactly.
awesome.
Until the spine just started peeling
Right off, man,
right
right off. And it'd drive people crazy nowadays. You know, it's funny. I still have what, like, when I got to be 17, 18 years old, when I first started realizing what it was to own a book and take care of a book. I
Yes.
still have like 3 or 4 issues from back that time period when I was like, you know what? This is different.
Yeah.
Now it's different. Now I'm grown. The books will be like this now. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like hunted all those old books, you know, that I had just read to pieces, you know. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yep. I got a whole bunch of old ones that I still have that were in good condition, and I got
Right,
them
right.
all nice and sleeved up, sealed
Yep,
nice and tight. Retirement, baby.
that's
Yeah.
right.
So yeah.
Yeah.
But speaking of like the shows that you mentioned Street Sharks, which
Mhm.
then wants me to transition into some of the work that you're doing, which
Uh-huh.
definitely parallels quite a bit.
Yeah.
Babes, gore, and dinosaurs. So you've got to take me through what I'm looking at here. What's the story? Like I love the whole anamorphic. Is that the right term?
Anthropomorphic. Yeah, yeah,
Anamorphic characters and stuff like that. So break down to me, what am I gazing upon?
yeah. So when we, like, I don't remember what happened. I remember my wife was sitting in my living room and I was like, I got this banging idea. And she was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, I'm gonna put out another book. And she was like, shut up. You got 2 IPs running right now. You're not gonna put out another book in a year. Because people told me I couldn't put out one. You know, there were plenty of people that were like, that's not gonna work.
Of
So
course.
she was like, there's no way you're gonna put out a banger, like a third banger in a year. And I was like, I'm gonna do it. She was like, okay, so what are you gonna do? And I was like, well, right now I've written everything I could think about except the things that were just that made me smile in life. You know what I mean? I wrote about the scary stuff. I wrote about monsters. I wrote about demons. I wrote about theology. I wrote about history. What was I gonna do next? And I was like, man, look, where did it start? It all started. I'm a big Jessica Rabbit fan.
Oh.
I got a Jessica Rabbit tattoo on my calf, but I've got a Lola Bunny tattoo on my other calf.
Hey.
And I was like, man, a lot of guys that buy comics are my age group. You know, what were we popping off on when we were kids? You know, and I was like, okay. So I started thinking, and there was a movie that Disney put out years ago. It was called Adventures in Dinosaur City. And it was like a made-for-TV, kind of like Hocus Pocus was when it came out originally, you know, Halloween Town, all that jazz.
Okay.
But it was like, it was about these kids that get sucked into a VHS tape about dinosaurs that were humanoid dinosaurs that were being oppressed by cave people.
Wow. Okay.
And I was like, bro, how deep is that? And people are not even going to understand how deep that is because a lot of people aren't from that side of the track, so they don't really understand what's happening in this movie that you're getting. So I was like, cool, I'm going to write my own version of that and do my own tales, my own take, because I like originality. That's so important. So I came up with a city. We call it Seno City. It's actually broke down into 4 different quarters. We've just shown you the basics right now, but it's about this retired mercenary named Ricky. He's a anthropomorphic Allosaurus that owns a gentleman's club called Piece of Tail.
Ah.
And
Nice.
yeah, so mad fun with that. We had a lot of fun with that. The whole team has had fun. But then there was this concept. I was like, man, what do we do to pop it off? Like really pop it off. I was like, well, we're gonna drop bright colors all over it. We're gonna, and then they were like, well, give us ideas, concepts, because I have teams. I have currently 29 people on my team right now that work on all different projects. So I'm going over things with people, and it was like Blade Runner. Blade Runner was popping when we were kids.
Of course.
So and then Cyberpunk 2077 came out, and I was like, okay. The only good thing about that game was the story and how pretty it actually was. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do my own.
Okay.
So we came up with this cyberpunk-esque city, you know, and these characters that are all humans and dinosaurs living at the same time. But I was like, man, look, I want to talk about different things in these stories. So I was like, well, what happens if a Saurian dude falls in love with a human chick? How do we treat that? And
You
it's
say a
so much deeper.
is that the race? Saurians?
Uh-huh.
That's cool.
It's
That's
so
cool.
it's so much deeper than people the surface of what what it looks like with the title and stuff. And that's the misleading thing I wanted to throw in there, because it's like, it's fun, it's gory, and there's chicks in it and whatever else. But it was like, we deal with that on a daily basis right now. What the issue is with a group of people being in a relationship with another group of people. Then I was like, man, what else are we gonna do? And so I created what we call tank bred individuals. And tank bred individuals are people that are born in a vat, and created for certain purposes. That's outlawed in our book now, because to me, it's almost like slavery. You've created a person, they have no thoughts, they're not allowed to do what they want. You've made them to be this being. They have to do exactly what you say, you own them. So we outlawed that. I thought it'd be a fun thing to do, to show these beautiful beings that have complete freedom now. So you actually meet one of them in the very first issue. Her name's Eve. She's a great character, mad fun. And then we get into stuff like AI.
Okay.
Are AI, are they sentient? Are they allowed to have their own existence? Do our laws govern them? How do we feel about that and stuff like that? So it's very I don't know. I don't know how to explain it unless you really get into it.
It's kind of like from what you break down to me, one, like when you first see like the covers and the images and stuff like that, you think of I'm like from your era. I look at stuff that reminds me of like Duke Nukem, and stuff like that. Like hey, it's about to be good old raunchy fun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's like that's like one of the layers.
Yes, sir.
It's
absolutely.
it's what I like to call it the lore.
Right.
I like to call it the lore. It's like in order for me to teach you something, I got to give you something sweet.
Absolutely.
And looking at how you're framing your stories and the character work, the color, the bright colors, the anamorphic, beautiful dinosaur women and all that other great stuff. It's sweet. But while I'm enjoying something sweet, I'm also getting something. Well, I have to call like a vegetable, but something healthy.
Your meat and potatoes.
Something healthy while I'm enjoying something sweet. And I think that's one very clever writing trick, which I always appreciate, because I like to play with those ideas myself. I like to play with like in my series, it's very colorful and bright, and it's an action adventure and all that other wonderful stuff. But at the same time, there's overlying lessons that are inside. There's emotional connections that anybody can relate to. There's and I'm seeing how you're breaking down how that story works. I can see the appeal. I
think that it's gotten to this point now where it was an experiment with issue 1, right? It was like, hey, look, how are people going to vibe with it? And it did pop off, very well for us. We were very thankful. But then it went into so far as so many people were asking about the world itself, because it's so big. And I was like, okay, so like right now we've got a project in the works called These Neon Streets. And These Neon Streets is actually 6 stories written by different up-and-coming indie writers, with my outlines to short stories. So I gave them outlines, they went and they filled in how they wanted to, and now we've got a different interior artist per story for those short stories.
Wow.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. That one's in the works. It was supposed to drop last month, but it was much larger than I had anticipated.
Dustin.
So yeah, so
I know how big that is. I'm just sitting there looking. I'm like, my God. That's huge.
So it was 8, but not just 8 different interior artists. It was 8 different colorists as well.
Oh my God.
I love my team. It was like herding cats. Like,
yeah,
it really was. It was
I like that.
Hey, are you going to be done by this date? Hey, because normally I don't rush people, or I'm not on people like that. You know what I mean? Because of the way our books drop. But I was like, man, hold up. So then I had a couple people go, we're not going to be ready. And I was like, all right. So then Bladen came around. He was like, hey, look, I'm halfway through with BGD2. Are you ready to go? We can put this in the slot. And I was like, okay. So we brought it out, and I think that people really vibe with the characters and what's going on and what they're seeing and whatnot. Um, and remind me at the end of this, and I'll shoot you a couple copies of it. But
Oh yes, please. I'd
yeah.
love that.
So when we were putting together issue 2, man, I was like, I got another story, and everybody was like, shut up, and I was like, no, I got another one, and I walked. It's happened to me twice. This is how my names happen with certain books. But BGD was something that I wanted to give you exactly what you were going to get. I wanted you to know it was going to be babes, gore, and dinosaurs. But that's what I wanted you to expect when you came in, and then get the shock of everything else we're going to give you in that series. So I walked by my wife, and she was sitting in the living room, and I was like, hey, let's do an anthropomorphic book about a bunny chick. And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah. Everybody liked Zootopia.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, fun movie.
But at the same time, all the adults that watched it were like, bro, this could be so much better than it was. We're not going to lie to ourselves and say that we didn't think that. You know what I mean? So
everybody did. Exactly.
So I created this world called Eden, and which is actually my daughter's name.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, she had gotten upset with me because in Greed, I used my son Oz's name in Greed, and my daughter had been like nagging me for like 6 months talking about her name wasn't in anything. So, I put together this story about this special agent. Her name is Agent C for Carotene, and
so this, is this still in the works now?
The preview is on the Kickstarter right now. You can get the 8-page preview that's on there with the BGD too. Just a different type of marketing, adding that in there so people can get a look at it. And we had some little bonuses to it, like limited edition covers and stuff like that.
Nice.
They are not ash cans; they're full size comic books.
Oh wow!
So, the previews are full size comics. They're just 8 pages, and when the book pops off, it'll be 24 pages. Full color, of course. And all our books are cardstock as well, because I believe that you guys deserve the best product you can get when you purchase from us.
That is brilliant.
So that's not just covers, that's interior pages or cardstock.
That's very good.
So Agent C, I've never written a cop drama before.
Oh, wow.
So that was my newest endeavor. And I think you guys are going to enjoy that as well. So you go from mercenary dude that owns his own gentleman's club to a cop drama about this serial killer that's now out, and you've got an agent that's supposed to be after him, and all the shenanigans that goes in and out between people being on the wrong side of the law in the police department. You know what I mean? How they treat folks, how they shouldn't be treating folks, all kinds of real deep material, stuff that people can expect from me after reading my other stuff. I don't write kids' books. I'm not great at that. So it is just as bloody, just as gory. At the same time, though, just as beautiful. Instead of the dark, like neon colors and stuff that you get from BGD, and if it hops, you get these like daytime scenes. These beautiful during the day, artistic scenes. But you're also getting this serial killer that doesn't give a shit that it's daytime. He's mean mugging cops and stuff all over the city, but that's who he's after. So it's a very interesting concept for us. And like I said, our books drop every 6 weeks. So you're definitely getting something new every time I turn around. If we get in previews, it'll be popping more than that, though. Come August, I'm hoping to have a book out a month. So
talk about burning the candle on both ends,
bro.
Whew.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're gonna hang with the big kids, you got to be able to put the time in and do the work.
Can't argue with that. So, I cannot argue with that. So thank you for sharing all that, Dustin. So with all that in mind, you folks at I gotta make sure I'm saying this right. Ethereal. Right? Ethereal. Yes, thank you. Good God. English is hard. Ethereal Comics, you guys are really doing the Lord's work. Y'all putting it in. So so what can we you touched on a little bit. So so is this what we're expecting from you in the coming months?
So you've got the Listener 4 drops in March. You've got BGD right now, issue 2 right now. That'll be out to everybody by April. So you'll get that. And then, like I said, issue 4, the listener. One thing that we're doing with this campaign is we're also adding the trade paperback for the listener. So issue 1 through 4 will be available.
Nice.
Really excited about that. And this issue of the listener is actually 30 pages instead of our normal 24. So you guys are getting, 90? I think it's 100 pages, including a couple pages of art that you guys are going to get in that trade paperback for $29.99.
Wow, that's really good.
So really, really hyped about that. And then after that, we'll have Greed issue 3 will drop. And then if it hops, will drop after that. And then BGD and so on and so forth. If everything works the way I want it to work, by August, you guys should be getting 2 books from me a month.
Okay.
And that's that. Yeah, it's definitely a lot of work, but it's at the same time, we're so very grateful, man, because every book we've put out has increased fan bases, percentage bases, the whole 9. When I first started this, I was doing every single show you could put me on. You know what I mean? I was doing every podcast, every write-in, review I could get. And it got to the point where I was like, I'm not second fiddle no more. So I get to pick and choose who we're hanging out with, who we're talking to. You know what I mean? Now there's people handling the social media, which is wild to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And
that's big time.
Bro, I'm very blessed, very grateful, because not only do we have fans, but we have fans of our artists and fans of our, not just our line artists, but our colorists and our, cover artists. And it's just been a cool thing, man. Like, we headlined 3 shows last year. And we've already headlined 1 this year. And I mean, we're only in January.
Yeah. So
we've headlined, February now, but we headlined 1 in January. We've got Suncoast Comic Con coming up. We're headlining that show. Mike DeBalfo is going to be there. Marissa Pope. I think Ryan Kincaid's going to be there. Greg Horn. I mean, Carrie puts on a great show, so we're really excited to go back for them. We did that show last year. It was a good time. We're in Vegas this year. There's a lot going on, man.
You guys are popping off.
Bro, it would not be possible if people didn't vibe with the products we're putting out.
That's correct.
So
that's true.
Super grateful, bro. Like from the bottom of my heart, like I'm like right now we're at like 52% increase in sales for issue 1 of BGD.
Excellent.
And it is excellent. It's amazing. And to be on people's shows that are there and are in the know and where we want to be at is so cool, man. It's so cool. But yeah, so if it hops, man, gonna be popping. I think BGD is doing its thing. And we've got a rework coming for Greed, which is gonna be super fun. A bunch of new folks working on that book. So by the end of this year, and you can quote me on this one, dude, by the end of this year, by December, instead of having 1, 2, 3, 4 IPs that you guys see now, there should be a minimum of 6 IPs running.
Okay, 6. We're going to count them out. 6.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Okay. I got one going. Okay. I got one coming with Devin Massey from Cave Woman fame. He and I are working on a book. And then we've also got one that I'm working with Steph Wilson, who's a cover artist of ours and a great guy. Yep. Really popular in his own indie right now. So he and I are working on a project as well. So yeah, 6 IPs coming out of Ethereal this year. So you guys get ready for it.
Nice. And we can't wait. Before I ask about your plugs and where we can get all your wonderful stuff, I want to personally thank you for allowing me to interview you this day, Dustin. Because like you're blowing up, you're doing all these wonderful things, but for you to allow me to actually sit down with you and take time out of your busy days and schedule and stuff, it's from the bottom of my heart. I am truly blessed.
Man, I'm very thankful. I feel the same way though. You know what I'm saying? I feel I'm so happy to be here, speaking to you, and like I said, if we didn't have the people behind us and the people that are working their butts off and the fans and the families involved and stuff, because, dude, let me tell you, there are nights where if something goes wrong, I have people that work with us all over the world. So if there's something that goes wrong at 2 o'clock in the morning, we're all on Zoom chats or Discord chats trying to figure out what we're going to do this to make sure everything's out on time. Or, trust me, when you start looking at page after page after page after page, it gets to the point where you can miss things. And I'm so very grateful to our editors, to our teammates that are like, hey, look, don't miss this before we put it out, and it's just been a phenomenal experience to meet people like yourself and to meet fans and to meet, like-minded individuals. I'm very grateful. I count my blessings every day. And yeah, man. No,
that's awesome.
Dude, I'm just as grateful for y'all as y'all are, hanging out with us. We had a fan. I'll say this before we get into anything else. We had a fan. His name's Keith. He's a really, really good dude. We drove to Baltimore, and this is just how. This is how much I care about our teams. I didn't do the Baltimore show with these guys, but we had 5 team members in Baltimore, and I live in Tennessee. I drove the 14 hours to Baltimore to take them books to have at the show. And we had a fan that was at the show. It messes me up every time I think about it. I had a fan at the show that met. We were all supposed to go to dinner. But being as Baltimore is, I guess the show is big. I'd never been before.
Yeah, it's pretty big. It's pretty big.
It was a pretty big show. So, and like I said, I wasn't going as a guest or anything. So I'm like sneaking through with employees getting into the show and whatnot. You know what I mean? So I don't have to wait in line and all the craziness. But I got to the booths that our teams had, and we were giving out people books and stuff. And we were supposed to go to dinner, and they were like, something happened with the reservations at this restaurant, but it was nuts. And they couldn't sit everybody, so they could only sit 10 of the 15 of us, right? So people started splintering off and doing their own thing. And my mom, who had never done a show with me I hadn't lived by my parents in almost 20 years. Mm-hmm. And now they live literally 2 acres behind me.
Oh wow. Nice.
So yeah, it's really, really cool the way things are set up. But so my mom had drove with me, and so she was like, I'm not in the mood to get in the crowds or anything like that. And I was like, cool, look, I'll take you somewhere nice. We'll sit down and we'll hang out, just me and you. You know what I mean? So this Keith, he calls me and he's like, which is really cool, guys, for you guys that are listening and watching. We like dealing with our fans. You know what I mean? Before social media, it was really hard for people to deal with their fans or be involved with their fans. Man, look, I'm always open to talk or whatever else. But he called me and he was like, hey, man, I'm just hollering at you because we're in the area and we're not doing nothing. We want to see if you want to hang out. And, man, they came and had dinner with us, him, his wife, and his stepson. And, I mean, we were out till 3 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
Just chilling. Cheesecake Factory, whatever else afterward, and it was just such an experience because it to me, it solidified how real things are now. Now, like if we go to a show, we have fans that are like, hey, do you want to hang out? Do you want to da-da-da-da or whatever else? And it's like, how cool is that?
Yeah, it's really awesome.
I mean, it doesn't matter, I mean, originally it may matter who you are, but at some point that goes away and you've just made a really good friend and you get to associate with your really good friend in a state or whatever, you know what I mean? Same dude, just drove to Florida. We did VillaCon in Orlando this past month, and he lives in Florida, so he drove to the show, hung out with us, helped us set up booths and stuff both days that we were at the show, or all 3 days at the show. And it was just like, yeah, man, we're the grateful ones, dude. We're blessed to be able to be in y'all's presence and to have y'all appreciate the stuff that we put out. So
absolutely. Yeah. And thank you for sharing that very touching story with me, Dustin. That's really dope. So with all that in mind, where can we find all your great work? Where can we find you and reach you on social media?
Anywhere you can look up my name, with the exception of TikTok. And I'm on Twitter too. They do Twitter for me. So I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. Like, if you're on Facebook with me, that's me. That, like, if you guys reach out on Facebook, I handle all my Facebook. I don't handle my TikTok or my Instagram, but I do all my Facebook. So if you guys want to just shoot the shit or something, I'm always available on Facebook. But we are reachable. I mean, I get the messages off those other things, but generally Facebook's like umbilical cord for me, because that's where it started. So I always pay attention to my Facebook and talking to people on there. But you can look Ethereal Comics up on Instagram. You can look it up on Twitter. Like I said, you can Discord. My Discord is supposed to be all done this weekend coming up. So you guys will be able to get on there with Discord, and you'll be able to start catching videos of us just shooting the shit and coming up with ideas. But eventually we'll have a show called The Bullpen, and you guys will be able to get in and ask questions to folks that are working on books and stuff. And that's good for everybody, you know. And then Absolutely. We also do a show on Friday nights called ComX, which is a really cool one. Me and my buddy, Leigh Chalker, he lives in Australia. We do a show talking about Australian comic books versus American comic books. The weight that each carries on either or platform. And we also bring on people to interview. We like my teammates, but we also bring in people from Australia that are relatively famous, so it's pretty cool. It's cool. And you guys could ask questions and stuff like that, and we have a good time. But yeah, I'm all over, man.
Yeah, clearly so.
I'm all over the place.
I'm gonna leave all of Dustin's dope media links in the description section below. Hit him up. Great dude. Check out all the work from Ethereal Comics. They are doing, as I mentioned earlier, the Lord's work. They're doing wonderful, wonderful things. So, Dustin, I would like once again to thank you so very much for buying out the time to come on, talk about your great work, sharing your great story. Really do appreciate the time, my friend.
Yes, sir. You're absolutely welcome, man. Thank you.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. Anyway, everybody, this has been the Indie Corner. That is Dustin Brunell, and he is the guy. You already know who I am. I'm Trey the Brute Daniels. Follow me on all my dope social media platforms that I'll put right under my face. They're not there now, but in editing, they'll be there. At TheBrute00 on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, sometimes on TikTok when I feel like being silly. Also, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share the video. You guys have been awesome, and I'll catch you all next time. Also, if you want to support my channel, check out spinwiz.com or download the SpinWiz app and check out my comic series, Trouble. It was written with a lot of love, and it was definitely my favorite comic series to write. I've also written it in English and in Spanish, so whatever floats your boat, I got it for you. Thanks again, and check it out.